Hi, and thanks for watching Viewpoint, Hexagon Safety, Infrastructure, and Geospatial Division's vodcast series. And I'm your host, Jack Williams. And much has been said over the last 10 years about the journey to the cloud and public safety, with the growing need to update legacy systems, on-premises systems, and comply with next generation requirements to digitally transform and digitally reinvent yourselves. The need to sort of transform and move public agencies to the cloud and critical systems to the cloud at a responsible pace is becoming ever more apparent. And in this episode, I am really happy to have with me a good friend, a good colleague, and one of the smartest guys I know inside of Hexagon, Donno, who's a technical director of CAD delivery here at Hexagon Safety, Infrastructure, and Geospatial. And I'm going to have a good conversation with you today, Donno, about how public safety agencies can achieve digital transformation successfully, and help. What's that journey look like from on-premises to cloud-based platforms, and things we need to consider, and we'll have a good conversation today. So, Donno, welcome to the Viewpoint.
Thanks very much, Jack. It's great to be here.
Thanks. And so, Donno, before we get started, let's talk about something. So, will you
Sure.
tell me a little bit about your background, your experience in public safety, for the audience, just to give them a little taste of what a Donno Cole does?
Sure. Well, my public safety journey started in mid 1994 when I was looking for a career change, but had no idea what my career change was going to be. I had no plans. I just didn't know what to do with my life as a 20 something moving into the future. And a friend of mine had become a police officer with an agency down near Olympia, Washington. And he finished his training and said, "Hey, why don't you come down and do a ride along?" Which I'd never done before. And he worked graveyards because he was the new guy. And as is the case oftentimes with ride-alongs, you have the ride-along curse where nothing happens. And so we're in the middle of the night, two guys sitting in a police car roaming around the city of Lacey, Washington, trying to figure out what it was we were going to do. And he said, "Hey, well, let's go check out the comm center. That's pretty cool. You're a nerd. You like technology, so they got tons of it there." So we went to Capcom, which is the 911 center down in Olympia. They do Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, the surrounding area. And we're walking through, and I mean, it was fascinating. There's lots of computer monitors and keyboards and sounds and lights blinking and things like that. But I wasn't particularly, struck by it as far as this will be my future. And halfway through the tour, my friend's name is Jay. He looked at me and he said, "You're just like these people. You would do good at this." I'm like, "What does that mean? Just like these people?" Um, a long story short, Jay really truly believed in my ability to do that job as a call taker and a dispatcher. And he actually had the 911 center that was close to my house called Valley Communication Center in Kent, Washington. He called them and had them send me an application. And I was just disgruntled enough in the work that I was doing that I filled it out. I actually wrote a check that I thought was going to bounce for the typing fee because it was $10 to apply. And I'm like, I don't have any money. And thank God it didn't. But, a very long story short, 27, almost 28 years later, I am still in public safety. It is the absolute passion of my life. I am one of those people that is fortunate in this world to be in a job that I don't consider to be a job. I love what I do. I love the customers that I work with. I love the team that I've built and that I work with. I love the products that I work with. And every day, no matter what I'm doing, whether I send an email or I send a Teams message or I interact with one of my teammates or I mentor somebody, I know that the work I do that day continues to impact the lives and safety of the field responders, the citizens, the elected officials, the people that purchase our solutions. And for me, it's not work. It's just I get to do something positive for the community every single day. Um, I've done every job there is to do at a 911 center. I was a call taker, a dispatcher, a dispatch supervisor. I was a CAD system administrator slash system specialist. And ultimately, I ended my career at 911 in late 2004 as the technical services manager. And so I was responsible for all of the technology that was deployed at the 911 center. So, and then I've been with Hexagon now, almost 15, 16 years, and have had varying roles here as an implementer, a manager of an implementation team, an industry consultant. And now I am responsible for building teams and processes that deploy these solutions to our public safety customers around the country. And I've had the fortunate experience to be involved in over 160 deployments, in 47 states and 5 countries. And so I consider myself extremely lucky to have been part of this industry for as long as I have, and look forward to the next 10 or 15 years until I'm ready to retire.
That's awesome, Donno. And I'll be honest, I remember the first time I met you in Huntsville, Alabama. It was probably circa 2012.
Hmm.
And you've always been great to me and helping me get my feet established here at Hexagon. And I really respect the work you do. And I know a lot of our customers who have worked with you speak very highly of you. And for the audience out there, Donno's probably one of the guys who knows public safety the best. And when it comes to architecting solutions, he's our main guy. So I think you're the perfect person to talk to about this.
Thank
You
you.
hear me?
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
So before we go too deep, I guess just up front, before we talk about like actually the mechanics of how you can make the move to the cloud, um, and make that process easier and sort of understand it more, what do you say? What would be the top challenges in your mind when it comes to just doing a full cloud migration from on premises to the cloud? So, what would be some of those top challenges, Donna?
I think the single biggest challenge is that there are so many unknowns from a public safety customer's perspective when it talks about moving to the cloud. Um, for as dependent on technology as public safety has become, both field responders and the PSAPs themselves, the actual telecommunicators and the leaders of PSAPs, they're nearly 100% dependent on technology nowadays to do their job. Whether it's the radio system or the telephone system or computer aided dispatch, records management, mobile solutions, all of those things are inherent to their operation. And I oftentimes refer to CAD as the central nervous system of a PSAP and its varying operations and the field operations that it supports. But for all of that dependence on technology, we are so risk averse as a community for obvious reasons, right? We have a critical job to do to the communities that we serve and to the public safety agencies that we served. And so nobody wants to be on the bleeding edge of technology because it's so important and integral to what they do every day. And it's not the kind of technology where if your website goes down for a few hours, you might miss out on a few $100s in sales or something. If your systems become unavailable, the real chance of someone's life being impacted by that is there. And it's uh, it's something that a lot of IT professionals, people that have existed in a commercial space for most of their existence, sometimes just overlook, and they don't understand the hesitance to adopt cloud technologies and why it seems to be such a slow drag for the public safety folks. Um, and it really does just come down to that unknown factor. It's like, what's going to happen to my mission critical systems if my internet connection goes down? If I have a cloud-based solution, what happens to those critical systems if just my internet connection is slow, like someone's streaming some, YouTube channel or Netflix or something like that? How can I make sure that my data is safe and secure when it's in the cloud and somebody else has responsibility for it? How do I make sure that I can comply with all my local, state, federal guidelines and security requirements about encryption and data encryption and isolation and making sure data at rest is protected? All of the rules that I have to follow by either the FBI or state and local authorities that govern how long I have to keep it. Like, does it stay long enough in the cloud? All of these questions, there's just so much that they don't understand. And maybe they do, maybe they even do have an understanding. And what's funny is you can walk into any PSAP in the country right now and you can guarantee that they are using cloud technology in some form. If they have
Yeah.
Office 365 and they log into Outlook, they're using cloud technology. If they edit a Word document collaboratively with somebody else in the PSAP, they're using cloud technology. They may not realize it or recognize it, but they are using cloud technology on a daily basis. Rapid SOS spreading like wildfire throughout the country, which is
Yep.
awesome. Cloud technology, and it's integral and becoming more integral to the operations to get better location data. So they're using these technologies even if they don't know it, but that unknown and the sometimes the inability to find the information on your own, what you find on the websites a lot of times for the different providers with Amazon Web Services and Azure Gov Cloud, is marketing level material. It's information about why you should make this choice, and it doesn't provide the IT professionals, the directors of comm centers, the chiefs of police, or the CIOs of cities or counties. It doesn't give them that warm and fuzzy feeling about how does it work. I need to understand how it works and how I see myself in that technology and that deployment so that I can pull the trigger and say, yeah, this is a great decision for my agency. So I really believe the biggest challenge is just the unknown factor and not having enough exposure to it. Even though folks like you and I, Jack, we've been in the technology world for a long time, we know cloud technology is super mature, been around for a long, long time, way before anybody called it the cloud. There were cloud hosted services and websites that were providing applications as a service, etc. It's just a little bit slower to get into the public safety world. Thankfully, though, it's changing, and it feels like it's changing almost on a very rapid pace compared to even a year or 18 months ago.
So Donno, just building upon that. So, and I get it. I mean, you do, we do. You're on the more on the front lines, but we've dealt in this space for a while, and we've actually done some stuff in the interoperability and interfacing world back in the day. And yeah, I mean, we've been leveraging web services and cloud-based technologies, just maybe called something else in the past. Um, there's a lot of technical challenges in understanding how it applies to this naturally risk-averse market called public safety is a challenge. And you know, in most of my presentations today, Chris Carver, one of our guys in the U.S., he has this saying that he wrote down one time, and I like it. I mean, I think it encapsulates the way public safety decision makers feel sometimes. Buying and purchasing technology are some of the most stressful decisions that public safety decision makers can make. And I was especially as it goes to the cloud and to make that leap. It is a very stressful thing, and you want to have a partner and people who know how to know the questions to ask, who are not going to sort of on the surface say, hey, everything's going to be hunky-dory. I mean, no, there are challenges. Public safety is not easy, and anybody who tells you that it is lying to you. But there's this internal, risk averse nature of the market. You've got some of the life safety functions require that we cannot fail. And then you also have maybe some of these internal change management sort of cultural challenges that you might come across. How can someone in a leadership role who's looking to adopt new technologies like the cloud, which enables things like AI and machine learning and advanced analytics, how can a chief executive officer, CIO, public safety leadership, how can they help guide that process and get people bought in and make sure that these investments are going to be worth it, and also get the cultural acceptance of let's be honest, a market that doesn't really like a lot of change.
Yeah, the bottom line is we work with customers whose systems are relied upon to aid their 911 professionals and their field responders to make literal life and death decisions. Um, I don't often, use the fear tactic or emphasize the fact that lives hang in the balance, because I feel like it's overused sometimes in our industry to justify bad choices or bad decisions. Um, but in this case, the reality of it is for those leaders, the CIOs, the CEOs, the chiefs of police, city council members, mayors, county executives, even sometimes governors of states, they have a real stake in the systems that get deployed because they do have such high visibility from a public perspective, but only in the case things go wrong. Nobody ever hears about every day when things go right, right? Nobody ever hears about the 363 days a year where 911 did everything perfect and police responded perfectly, but they certainly hear about the 2 days a year that something went wrong. And so the sense of control and ownership that are afforded by a traditional on premise deployment of these types of mission critical software, they gave those agencies peace of mind that their fate was, for the most part, in their own hands. With good maintenance and monitoring practices and all of those things, they could be assured effectively of system stability and availability. When things go wrong, they had the ability to put hands on the problem, and they could address it quickly. And when you think about moving to the cloud culturally, that's a big hurdle to jump when migrating those same systems to the cloud. Of course, most IT professionals realize that that we rely upon cloud technologies, every single day, from our favorite game on our smart device to online banking. They're all cloud deployed technologies, but line level commanders, chiefs of police, lieutenants, dispatch supervisors, telecommunicators, they don't know that, at least not to the same degree. So overcoming those cultural norms is challenging. And when you consider financial and governance aspects, it's a bit easier because some come with its own challenges. Um, You think compliance, for example, is far more in-depth topic than finance, ensuring your necessary documentation is part of a public records request. Those things that the stakeholders at agencies verify when making a choice on which vendor or vendors to partner with on cloud technologies becomes so important to the adoption of these new types of technologies. And for those, political leaders that are elected, law enforcement and fire leaders that might be hired or appointed, um, those types of control choices when kind of addressing the cultural aspect of changing to cloud technology just shift the feeling of ownership, responsibility, um, and their ability to have more direct control over it makes it easier for them to adopt that. So having a partner that, and the partner in the form of a vendor, like I hate the term vendor because I'm not a vendor to my customers. Yeah, I sell them things, services and software, but ultimately I'm their partner. Myself, the 30 people that work on my team to deploy these systems, we partner with agencies to achieve outcomes. And when you choose the right partner that has the right experience and the right background and the right mentality associated with adopting these technologies, and more importantly, realize that we are not deploying an iOS game for you. We are not deploying Microsoft Word or Outlook. We are deploying a mission critical life safety system that carries with it great deals of responsibility, changes the entire dynamic versus going in with a partner that is inexperienced or doesn't know what the cloud is or doesn't take that role seriously and just says, well, why can't you just have the redundant internet? Or if the internet goes down, you can still be on the radio, right? They just people that don't have the right experience and background and know this industry as well as we know this industry take it a little bit too nonchalant and casually.
Excellent. So let's pivot real quick. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate for you and just
Okay.
say, look, um, you know, I've got some concerns. That I'm naturally risk averse. There's some cultural challenges. There's some tough decisions that need to be made. There's a lot of change. But sell me on the benefits, Donno. I mean, for those out there listening, what are those benefits? And I'd like to hear it from you about looking at the cloud for public safety applications like dispatch, records management, analytics. What are those key benefits? How will it help me if I'm a decision maker in a public safety space, um, with things like compliance, doing more with less? I'll let you answer. Sell me on the what are those benefits for moving to the cloud? Why would somebody want to do this?
That is a huge question that we could spend an entire vodcast talking about as
All
far as
right,
the
I'm for
benefits
it.
go. But I'm going to focus on a couple of areas that are
All right,
that are specific to public safety, because I think our concerns are a little bit different, and the benefits that we see in moving to cloud technologies are different than, say, a commercial, endeavor of some sort or a retail endeavor. Um, so I think one of the biggest advantages of moving to cloud technologies, and specifically software as a service, is the ability for your technology to stay current. It's amazing to me how uh, far behind in software versions a customer can become simply because of that risk averse nature, first of all, but more importantly, because of the cost associated with it. If you have to go out and buy new server hardware every 5 years, or you have to upgrade your operating system licenses or database licenses or workstation licenses every few years, the cost can be astronomical to stay up to date. And so what happens is it becomes a back burner topic. It's like, well, we're fine now. We're stable now. We don't really need anything in the new version. Sure, it'd be nice to have, Z coordinates for next gen 911, or it'd be awesome if we could track people on the map in addition to vehicles and equipment. But staying up to date is difficult. It's challenging from a change management perspective. It's expensive from a financial perspective. It takes a lot of dedicated effort on the part of customers to stay updated. There's training that has to be involved. There's maybe rethinking of workflows or business processes, redefining outcomes that you need to achieve. And so when you go to a cloud deployment, and again, specifically software as a service, you now enter a paradigm where being up to date is just a natural part of the ecosystem, where those technologies are written in such a way, the actual code behind them is written in such a way to know that they're cloud deployed and to know that being able to update quickly, easily, and without significant impact is important. And so you have an entire software development thinking that enables you to update with minimal impact. And more importantly, with very little effort on your part, with the exception of training people perhaps on a new feature that comes into play or something like that. Being able to stay up to date is so important. Those legacy platforms, they were lucky to be able to upgrade once in maybe 3 to 5 years, just due to the size and complexity of that solution. And so those cloud technologies, you can stay up to date every time a release comes out if you choose. And most cloud providers that are offering SaaS will place incentives into their maintenance agreements, their SLAs, to stay current because it's better for everyone. It makes us so that you get the advantage of bug fixes that come out in a release, new features that come out in a release. Maybe your state has new compliance requirements that were passed into law, and you need the software to help you comply with those. Those get placed in an update. So instead of paying your software vendor for a one off customization, now you simply get it in the next release of that SaaS software. So there are just so much benefits to staying up to date with going to the cloud. um, it can't be understated. Then, of course, the other benefits, these ones are maybe more obvious to IT level professionals that are used to cloud technologies, and the conversations surrounding cloud technology. But I mean, cost savings in deploying a data center. You don't have to deploy a data center. You don't have to deploy infrastructure that is going to take up space. And we always often think about just the cost to buy the hardware, right? It's $10,000 for this server or whatever it is. But there's also the cost to power that server, to keep it up to date, to cool it, to have staff that keep it up to date with security patches and updates. Failures of hardware, component failures, having spares on hand so that you don't have to wait for shipping. All of those extra costs, soft costs that you might not think of when you're running your own on-prem data center, they all go away. Um, the infinite ability to scale vertically and horizontally in the cloud never ceases to amaze me. When you look at some of our solutions and you're watching a specific pod, for example, or a service, and that service is becoming taxed and you see it working harder and harder and harder, the cloud technology simply says, hey, here you go. Here's some more processor power. Here's some more memory resources. Uh, you're never going to have to worry about storage. You're never going to have to worry about, can I keep a year of data or can I keep 10 years of data? These things, when you aggregate the resources of things like Amazon and Microsoft, they just are not your concern anymore. And you never have to worry about, if I am a Florida customer and I have a hurricane come through, can my system scale to achieve what I need it to achieve when my world is falling apart? Of course we can. It's infinitely vertical and horizontally scalable. So you just can't even discount that to any degree when you talk about the benefits of moving to the cloud. So I know those are only two. There are a vast number more, but I think for public safety customers that are risk averse, want to stay up to date, but kind of shy away from it just because it is challenging. In addition to the budgetary problems that every public entity faces. I mean, I was an IT manager for years at 911, and every single year I had to fight for every penny in my budget. Even if it was the best decision for my agencies, I was competing against, do I get an updated fire truck that has a better pump? Do I have two more police officers? Do we get new police cars to replace? I had to compete for every dollar. And so when you can make better financial choices by making use of cloud technologies, you're way ahead in just about every way.
Thanks for that. I mean, yeah, the cost of staying up to date, the lack of having to deal with infrastructure, software licenses, all those soft costs, the infinite ability to scale horizontally and vertically. Three very good reasons. So, I think about this, right? So you mentioned this a little bit. You said it takes a kind of a shift of mindset, right? To go from, I like you had the peace of mind of having things in your own hands, right? I like to keep my spreadsheets on my computer. I'm not uploading it to the cloud, and I'm not going to play like change management, like that. Just coming to grips with sort of a small change in mindset that can be challenging. I think oftentimes I meet with people who are very eager to adopt new cloud technologies so that they can take advantage of some of the benefits that you just talked about and really do some cutting edge innovative stuff, save money, and ultimately deliver better service. But how do I get started? I mean, what what what's the first step? I mean, can you share any best practices, tips, tricks that would, help me if I'm public safety decision maker X, help me know where to go, make the process easier, more achievable, more practical, um, you know, a mindset, an approach, just anything, Donna, because I could see that would be challenging. I mean, there's probably a lot of people on the fence that see all the benefits They look at the efficiencies. They see it as a long-term bet that's got a lot of potential payoff. But how do I get there? What are some things that can help me get down that road? Do you have anything you can share with us based off your experience and the work you've been doing, Donna?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first and most important best practice or consideration for moving to the cloud that I would give customers is start with your mindset. Start with how you're thinking about the technology that you're choosing to deploy, because there are different considerations to think about when you're deploying to the cloud. When I worked at 911, cloud was not even something we thought about. Everything was on-prem. If I needed more scalability, I had to go buy more servers. And when I thought about the problems that existed, what were my considerations as an IT manager for an on-prem solution? I thought about things. Do I have redundant power systems at my 911 center? Do I have a generator capable of supplying power to all of the mission critical equipment that exists at my 911 center, from the water heater so that my people can wash their hands, all the way to the heating and ventilating air conditioning systems that keep the equipment room cool? Do I have enough power for that? Do my individual components have redundancy in every place possible, so I have no single point of failure? I have two network switches, I have two power supplies in the servers, I have two network cards in the servers. All of those things that I considered when I was deploying solutions in my data center really don't become my problem anymore when I hire someone else to do it for me. When I give them my money as a subscription, and I say, you're going to deploy this software as a service for me. So I have to think differently as I prepare to deploy this technology. So I have to think about things like, how do I connect to the internet in my cloud provider? Am I buying cable internet service from the local cable company just like any other consumer? Do I have government type connectivity? Am I connected to an institutional network of some sort? Is it fiber? Is it diversely routed? Is it a ring so that if there's a break and some backhoe operator splits the fiber, do I still have connectivity? You have to think about those things now, because that lifeline, that connectivity to the cloud becomes vital. I mean, it's just as important as in the old days when I had to make sure I had power if the storm came and knocked out the power. So then you have to think about things like, do I share my internet connectivity and my bandwidth with other non mission critical solutions? Am I downloading tons and tons of body camera video or in car camera video across the same connection that I'm relied upon for my CAD system to get to the cloud, or for my records management system to get to the cloud? Um, Another tip is to make sure that you have their aces in their places. This goes back to when I was in high school. I worked for McDonald's. McDonald's had a saying: when it got busy and a tour bus pulled into your parking lot, that's not the time for somebody new to figure out how to work the drive through or somebody new to be on the grill. They called it aces in their places. And so look at your staff, look at the people that you've surrounded yourself with. Have you adequately invested in and prepared them for the migration to the cloud? Do they understand cloud technologies? Do they know what a point-to-point VPN is? Do they know what an express route into Azure GovCloud is? Do they know how to support those technologies? Do those technologies have the necessary redundancy to support your mission critical operation into the cloud? Making sure that you're investing in people and their technology and their skills and their soft skills are super super important when changing to a cloud deployment, to a mission critical system. Now, this is augmentation to existing skills, because let's face it, no agency is going to divest themselves entirely of on-prem solutions. There's going to be something that stays on-prem. Telephones, radios, for example, those are traditionally on-prem components. So those folks have to expand their expertise as opposed to abandon one in favor of the other. Um, but you need to invest in your people. you know when you talk about cloud deployments, most of those are going to be managed services, so it's important for your IT support to speak the same language as your cloud partners. So you have to know the terminology. What's a pod? What is Kubernetes? What does it mean? How do I launch more pods? Those are all things that your folks need to understand, so that when they call for support, for example, and somebody says, okay, we're going to restart this pod, if they're clueless as to what that means, they can't do their job adequately to say to their operational customers that this is the impact of what we're about to do. And so they've got to be well versed in those things. Lastly, I'd say that to embrace the cloud truly is a way to place your application in the best possible situation for resiliency, redundancy, and performance scalability. Trying to hold fast to legacy concepts that aren't compatible with cloud solutions is just going to cause you unnecessary trauma. So again, I go to the beginning of what I said. It's all about mindset. It's all about putting your head in the right space to adopt these cloud technologies, and you can't do it, partially. You have to be a wholehearted, enthusiastic adopter of cloud technologies and just dive into it, and making sure you have good partners and good staff uh, is important and key to that decision. Because if you try to keep a foot in both worlds, you're going to cause yourself that undue stress and undue consternation about, am I making the right choice? What are we doing? Those questions just don't need to be there if you put your head in the right place.
Well, thanks for that answer, Donna. Man, you got some good stuff. Hey, keep your aces in your places.
I can't take that
I
one. That's McDonald's, but I've lived with it for
no,
my whole
I've
life
never,
because I
I
believe
haven't
it.
heard that. But I mean, you're right. I mean, there's a level of technical literacy that we need to train people up with so that they can speak the same language and take advantage of these things. And I don't think this is just happening in public safety either. So, I mean, that is not a
No.
unique thing, but it's very important to invest in the people development, the development of skills of your staff so that they are I don't know, more technically literate if you are going to make a move to the cloud. So, and then it's hard to straddle the line. It's hard to
Mhm.
straddle the fence.
Yeah.
It can be challenging. And
Those just
when
give
you
you
were
headaches you don't need.
and you were listing off all the things that you would worry about, when you were if you were a technical director earlier, I was sitting there, man, I would be a nervous wreck if I had I have an extra this, an extra that,
Oh,
an extra. I mean, that's got to
yeah.
relieve some sort of stress. But then you start to think about different things and change that mindset. So excellent, excellent thing. So I got one more thing for you here, and then
Sure.
we'll wrap it up after that. So let's do a little future casting here. Um, so let's see, from a future, 5, 10 years, I don't know. Let's put something like that on it. How do you see cloud? And that's I hate in one way, I kind of hate using the word cloud, but cloud encompasses so much, right? It's not only scalability, reliability, and just access to sort of a really almost an infinite level of resources, but it also enables all these new services that require this heavy compute power that are now basically like commodities that can be deployed with inside your applications and solutions. Uh, what do you see the cloud and all the cloud technology surrounding that and those services? How do you see that transforming public safety over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, and well into the future? I mean, what do you kind of see? I'm curious to get your thoughts on what you think um, things will look like.
I think, what a great time in history to be talking about that subject. What does the future look like? Because I oftentimes say the future is now, right? And if the last 3 years have taught us anything, and I'm referring to COVID and the pandemic, if that's taught us anything, meaning public safety professionals from 911 to field responders, they're not immune, right? That virus does not care if you wear a badge or a uniform or if you put a headset on every day. Those people got sick. And I heard horror stories of departments that were running 24-hour police shifts due to shortages, or some calls for service that were simply not being responded to because they didn't have the number of people due to the pandemic. Cloud technology can provide the ability to operate from more than one central location. And so you can take call takers. And this is happening. There are agencies that are literally doing this today, where call takers are answering 911 calls from home, and they're creating events from home. While they're positive with COVID-19 but asymptomatic. And so they continue to work, but you certainly can't expose non-positive people at the comm center or the fire station or the police station to that virus. You just can't take that risk. But there's no reason that person can't work. They're fine, they're healthy, they're asymptomatic, they have no, issues with the COVID infection at all. So supporting dispatching in the same way, it's a bit more challenging when you have radio infrastructure to consider and some requirements, but nonetheless, it's totally doable. And by moving to the cloud, think about that. If you think about it from just an simple architecture, diagram, if you look at a picture and you have your cloud technology deployed that, and you have every single member of your staff that works from home or that has a home, and every home has internet. I mean, let's face it, it's 2022 and having internet at home is not a luxury anymore. It's almost a requirement. I mean, who doesn't have Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever that they want to see and stream at home? Who isn't having students or kids who get homework assignments via a website or something? So the reality is that people in this industry have, internet at home. And so the the capability to do those things. The cloud tech allows us to operate in a way that's nearly endlessly flexible so that you can achieve your mission from just about anywhere. So it doesn't matter about pandemics or hurricanes or earthquakes or floods. That dispatch operation can be from literally anywhere. And while the field responders have to be in the field, you can't do much about that. It's like you're not going to be able to do, a cardiac intervention from home, and you're not going to be able to give drugs by a paramedic from home. So those things are limiting. But at least your ability to connect with the citizens, to answer those calls for service, to create those events, to dispatch those resources, to have access to all of the information and institutional knowledge that you've programmed into your solution over the years from anywhere, it's revolutionary from the technology perspective. And so the future is going to be awesome. I mean, cloud is only going to get more stable. Cloud is only going to get more accessible. It's only going to get more affordable. Technologies are only going to move faster and faster towards the cloud as people like us at Hexagon think about ways to leverage those technologies to improve the solutions that we offer and improve the lives of our customers. So the future is amazing. I mean, I can't even imagine, what someone like Steve Jobs, who was a visionary, would think about cloud technology today if he were still alive. Um, but the future's now. I mean, these technologies are here now, they're real. And so while the future has amazing potential, um, COVID has taught us that cloud technologies give us something that we, even as recently as 5 years ago, would have never even thought was possible. Which PSAP director, if you went to them in 2019, said, "Hey, you want to have some call takers at home taking 911 calls and creating events?" And they'd be like, "What, are you crazy? No way. They can't do that. How am I going to get the telephone there? Oh, guess what? Now you have IP telephony, and it doesn't matter where you are. You can answer your phone on. I mean, I get Teams calls on my cell phone when I'm in Disneyland, for crying out loud. So it
Yeah,
just, those barriers have dissolved, and I think, for all of the horrors of COVID-19 and the tragic loss of life across the globe and the impacts to the economy and the day-to-day life of everyone that's been affected by it, if there's one bright spot, it's that it has forced us, in this industry specifically, to think differently, to think progressively, to think radically outside the box. We're not talking about just lower a flap and put a foot out. We're talking about jump out of that box and run to the next block over because I need new solutions, because I can't operate in the same way when I got this little bug running around that wants to make everybody's life miserable. So, um, yeah, it's the future is amazing, but I think the future is now, and COVID has pushed us to figure that out in a fast way.
I
What is the
agree.
old saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. Well,
Exactly.
we had heck of necessity over the last few years, and
Well,
we figured it out.
and listening to you talk too, Donna, I mean, I know there's a big concern nowadays on the well-being of our call center staff, emergency communication center staff, as well as first responders, and that workplace flexibility that the cloud enables, really can help. Alleviate some of that stress. If it's not going to be the end all be all, but could ultimately help our call takers, our dispatchers, our supervisors, just get a little bit of time back, be able to work from the comfort of their home, still be plugged in, and maybe make their work life a little bit more rewarding. So I think those are some very valid points, and the future is now. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, hey, any parting thoughts you'd like to leave us with, Donna? You got a fun
Um,
prediction for me or something?
I
A
wish.
good quote? There you go.
uh, I think that it's a super exciting time to be working in public safety technology services. uh, when cloud technologies have just an amazing potential to improve operational stability, resiliency, redundancy, scalability, all the things we talked about, but it's on a scale like never before. I mean, it's not like, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a DR site so that I have some protection in case my site becomes a smoking hole in the ground or I have to evacuate because of a flood. We could do those things before, but it was still limited to the degree that our budget and staff and capacity allowed us to build and expand for that. It was still limited. But that's not the truth with cloud technologies. When I still worked at the 911 center and I was the technology manager, Seattle had an earthquake in 2001. It's called the Nisqually earthquake. And it wasn't a huge earthquake and it didn't last forever, but it was significant enough that my 911 center's CAD system, which was a circa early 1980s written CAD system running on, at the time, was running on digital VAX servers, um, it became maxed out. with the number of events and units that we had logged in. And thankfully, we didn't have widespread destruction of infrastructure or injuries or anything like that. But the sheer volume of calls that were coming in by people saying, "Hey, I think we had an earthquake," um, it overloaded my CAD system. And the only thing I could do, at the time I was the CAD system administrator, the only thing I could do was sit there and watch and wait
Right.
for the load to reduce. I had there was nothing I could do. Even if I wanted to order another VAC server or another processor or more disk space or more memory, it had been weeks or months before I could have got that equipment and made a difference. And I needed it in minutes because the earthquake happened and 6 seconds later the phones lit up and they didn't stop for hours. So if that happened today for one of our SaaS customers, if that happened today, first of all, the system would probably scale on its own without much intervention on our part. It would realize that the load was becoming significant and exceeding its allocated resources and would adjust appropriately. But even if it didn't, one call to cloud ops from an IT person at that agency says, "Hey, we just had an earthquake. Can you give me some more resources?" Like, sure, give me a second. Couple of commands typed into Azure, off you go. I mean, think about that. Think about that from, and it's not, I talk a lot about CAD because that's my world and that's what I live in. I deliver CAD systems, but I'm talking about anything that can be cloud deployable. Records management. There are telephone solutions that can be cloud deployable now. Mobile solutions that can be cloud deployable now. Handheld solutions that are cloud deployable. Investigative resources that are cloud deployable. All of that is, an unprecedented amount of resiliency, scalability, and stability that, in 2001, I would have died for the ability to just call someone and say, "Hey, can you make my CAD faster?" Because I couldn't log on one more unit. I couldn't create one more event. There just was a limit, and I hit it. And so I think that, moving to the cloud requires a lot of careful thought. It requires a lot of analysis. You need to move carefully, but with purpose. And once your agency decides that the purpose is there and you need to make the move, whatever the primary driving factors are for you, whether that's budget, operations, resiliency, scalability, all of the above, whatever it is, you shouldn't be afraid to make the move. I think you should embrace that move. And if you partner with the right people and you ask the right questions and you get the right information, the journey is not painful at all. In fact, it can be a joyful experience.
Oh, those are excellent parting words, Donno. And I just want to say big thank you. I appreciate you
Yeah, my
coming on
pleasure.
to our new Viewpoint vodcast series. I hope you and your family are doing well out
Thank
west.
you.
And I
Yeah,
can't wait to hang out with you again and grab a beer sometime soon, Donno.
definitely.
And for everybody else out in the audience, I want to say thank you for joining Viewpoint. For more great stories, videos, podcasts, please visit hexagonsafetyinfrastructure.com. And with that said, y'all have a nice day.